Hello everyone, I've been playing the Eigenharp Pico for a bit more than a week now, and I thought it would be interesting to share how I've been learning scales on it and how I'm getting slowly accustomed to the keys and the keyboard of the Pico. Something to note is that you will probably be working in a different mode than the one that the Pico ships in. So by default, the Pico ships with a chromatic key setup, which means that you're working with half notes. So you've got Do, Do sharp, Re sharp. This limits the actual range of the Pico to an octave, and most songs that you will be playing will always be in the same key, certainly if they're pop or rock songs. So that's why it's probably best to first switch your keys to a major or a minor scale. And I'll just be playing with a major scale here. To do that, you use the mode button of the Pico, press the second button on the right to switch to key mode, and you can see that the fourth button on the left is lit, which means chromatic scale. If you select the first button here on the left, so when I'm talking left and right, this is from the player's perspective. So when you look at it, it's the other way around, but when you look at your Pico, you look at it upside down, and what I see as left is right for you. So when you select the left, the first button on the left here, you're in the major scale. Let's now switch back to the piano, and you can hear that I'm not playing in half tones anymore. Okay, so the second step is to look at one of my previous tutorials to properly set the thumb hooks of your Pico so that it comfortably rests in your hands. And you will be using the 4 upper keys with your left hand and the 4 lower keys for each row with your right hand. And it's best not in the initial learning not to cross your fingers over to the other side, because then you can easily get lost. If you try to keep them assigned each to a row here, after a while I find that you very easily start to be able to play without actually looking at the Pico. So the first exercise that I'm doing is to simply go up the scale. Something that is interesting is that that I found that it was much better to apply light pressure instead of hitting the keys hard, because the Pico's keys don't need that anyway, they're very sensitive. So let's do the first octave. So this is a C major scale. You've got this root C here, and 1 octave up is here, right? So that's the first octave that you have on the major scale on the Pico. Let's do the second one. And there you've got the third C. So you've got C here, and a C here, right? There is one additional playing key here, which is the D, that you will probably not be using when doing traditional scales, because you always go from root to root to root. So the first exercise is just to slowly go up the scales, and then to go back. And then you can speed that up. Okay, so try, if you've got problems doing this in an even tempo for each finger, try to do it very slowly. It's important that you try to make each touch of your finger consistent in timing regarding to the previous one, so that it's an even flow, even if it's a slow one. This means that you will start developing muscle memory, and that you can speed it up gradually later. If you have to each time pause to remember where you were, then it will be much more difficult to actually develop that muscle memory, okay? So the second exercise that I'm doing is to start working in intervals, using third intervals. And to do this, you basically each time skip a key. So you start with a root, and then, which is C here, and then you go to the next third up, which is the E. And then here you've got D, and then you got F, right? So you go like this. Okay, once again. And then the next octave. Okay, So you can do this all the way up. And then down. So something that I've been having a little bit of trouble with, and you can hear it, is that I'm used to press down with these fingers on my guitar, and I've got much more strength on these fingers than on these fingers. This means that I actually have to try to restrain the force that I'm using for these fingers so that the keys don't sound too hard compared to the upper ones. This is something that I'm still actively working on, and it will probably take a while for me to adjust to the precision at which the keys of the Pico react. Thanks a lot for watching this tutorial, and I will be recording another one about chords and traditional chord patterns on the Pico for next time. Bye!